The first thing I remember is silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the silence that presses against your chest, heavy and unnatural, as though the world is holding its breath before something terrible happens. That silence came back to me often after the night my life was supposed to end. But to understand how I got there, you need to see where it began. Because betrayal doesn't appear out of nowhere. It grows quietly, like cracks in glass you don't notice until the whole pane shatters. My name is Priscilla Winters, 36 years old, survivor of a childhood where hard work was my only inheritance. While other kids dreamed of stages and spotlights, I sat in the corner of our Seattle home typing lines of code into a flickering computer screen. I was invisible to most, except to one person, my younger sister, Vanessa. Vanessa was 3 years younger, but she lived as though the world owed her its gaze. Beauty, charm, timing, she had them all. If she walked into a room, the air shifted. People laughed harder, leaned closer, forgot anyone else existed, including me. Our parents adored her, not blindly. They loved me too, but I could see where their pride landed most easily. When Vanessa won a high school pageant, their eyes shone. When I won a statewide coding competition, they clapped politely and asked if there was food afterward. I didn't resent her. Not then. I told myself we were simply different currencies in the same family economy. She was attention, I was perseverance. It wasn't her fault that when she cried, people rushed in, and when I broke down, people assumed I'd fix myself. I kept fixing myself. Through college, through 3 part-time jobs stacked on top of each other, through nights so sleepless my skin felt electrified. And eventually, I built something the world couldn't ignore, a company called Neurosync, born from my obsession with teaching machines to read human emotion. Investors had laughed at me at first, until the algorithm worked. Suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. Suddenly, the girl who had patched her own shoes with duct tape was being called a visionary. Within a few years, I sold the company for $1 billion. And that was when Derek appeared. He didn't just step into my life. He arrived like a carefully staged performance. Tall, magnetic, with a smile that could have convinced the ocean to hold still. He wasn't the first man to show interest, but he was the first who seemed to see past the title, past the headlines, and speak to me as though I mattered beyond the billion. It felt like a miracle. I said yes to him, yes to the flowers, yes to the dinners, yes to the ring he slipped onto my finger in the California dusk. Vanessa stood beside me that day, tears streaking her perfect face. She whispered in my ear, "You deserve this more than anyone." And I believed her. That was my first mistake. Success changes the air around you. People breathe it in like perfume, suddenly intoxicated, suddenly interested. After the acquisition, my world filled with smiles I hadn't earned and handshakes I didn't trust. But Derek was different, at least. That's what I told myself. He had a way of making me feel anchored while everything else was drifting. The nights I doubted myself, he whispered, "You've already won, Priscilla. The rest is just applause." And for a while, I believed him. Vanessa, on the other hand, was drowning in the shadows I cast. Her modeling career in Los Angeles was collapsing, jobs slipping through her fingers as quickly as she posted filtered smiles on social media. When she called, her voice always wavered between entitlement and desperation. "Prissy, you've got no idea what it's like." She'd sob into the phone. "This industry chews you up. I just need a little help, just until things pick up." And I always wired the money, part guilt, part loyalty, part hope that if I gave enough, she'd finally see me as more than the sister who made her look small. When Derek and I married, Vanessa toasted us with a glass raised high, but her eyes never left him. There was something too sharp in her smile, as if she were performing a role I hadn't realized existed. I brushed it off. Family comes with flaws, I reminded myself. Love covers them. But love has a way of blinding you to cracks that are widening right under your feet. The first sign came months after the wedding. Derek suggested we consider merging my remaining assets into a joint trust. "It's not about control," he said lightly. "It's about unity. What's mine is yours, and what's yours should be ours." The logic was sound, the delivery smooth. And yet, I felt a shift, a faint coldness hidden beneath the charm. I declined gently, joking that I'd rather not turn my hard-earned billions into a shared checking account. He laughed, but the way his jaw tightened told me I'd touched something raw. Then Vanessa moved into our house. Just for a while, she insisted, standing in the foyer with suitcases that looked far too permanent. She claimed she needed a reset, and Derek encouraged it, saying family made the mansion feel less empty. At first I welcomed her. Sisters rebuilding bonds, that was the story I clung to. But soon, whispers filled the hallways when I entered a room. Laughter cut short. Their eyes, too quick to meet mine, too quick to look away. One evening I found them in Derek's study, leaning close over his laptop. They snapped it shut when I entered. Derek's smile was swift practiced. Just showing Vanessa some investment opportunities. I nodded, but a weight settled in my stomach. It was the kind of weight that tells you something isn't right, even when the words sound harmless. I should have listened to that weight, because betrayal doesn't arrive like thunder. It creeps in softly, disguised as routine, until one day you realize the storm has been circling you all along. It was the way Derek's voice dropped when he thought I couldn't hear. That was the moment my suspicion hardened into something sharper. I had come home early from a board meeting, the house unusually quiet. As I passed Derek's study, I caught the low murmur of his voice, measured, intimate. I paused, hand hovering near the doorknob. "The succession clause is airtight," he whispered. "Once it happens, the assets transfer within days." A pause. Then Vanessa's laugh, soft and chilling, slid under the door. I stepped back as though burned. My sister's voice should have been comfort, familiar, safe. But here it was loaded with something venomous. I didn't barge in. I didn't demand answers. Instead, I walked away, heels clicking against the marble floor, rehearsing calm when every nerve screamed. That night, lying beside Derek, I stared at the ceiling while he slept, wondering how many of his promises had been rehearsed. How long had I been married to a mask? The next morning I acted quietly. I contacted a private investigator through an encrypted line, an old security consultant who owed me a favor. "Follow them both," I said. "I don't want guesses. I want truth." The truth came faster than I was ready for. 3 days later, I sat in my office, blinds drawn, as the investigator slid a folder across the desk. Photographs spilled out. Derek and Vanessa, too close at a cafe, Vanessa with envelopes of cash, Derek reviewing offshore bank documents. The evidence painted a picture I didn't want to see, but could no longer deny. And then came the line that shattered me. "They're preparing for a yacht trip," the investigator said carefully. "According to my source, it's not for leisure. They're planning something final." I froze. Final. In the silence that followed, 1,000 childhood memories crashed against me. Vanessa braiding my hair before school, whispering secrets under blankets, begging me to protect her from nightmares. And now she was planning to end me. The betrayal cut deeper than Derek's lies ever could. Lovers can deceive, strangers can wound. But a sister, that was blood turning against itself. I didn't cry. Not then. My body bypassed grief and went straight to survival. I opened a locked drawer in my desk and pulled out a slim black case. Inside was a waterproof pouch I had assembled years ago for emergencies cash, a satellite phone, a compact GPS beacon. At the time it felt paranoid. Now it felt prophetic. That night at dinner, Derek poured me wine. Vanessa smiled sweetly and I smiled back. I even laughed at Derek's jokes, nodding at Vanessa's stories. My pulse drummed like a war drum in my ears, but my mask didn't slip. I had 6 days until the yacht sailed. 6 days to decide if I would be a victim, or if I would turn the game against them. The yacht gleamed under the San Diego sun like a predator dressed in white. From the dock, it looked like luxury. From where I stood, it looked like a coffin waiting to close. "Ready for paradise?" Derek asked, slipping an arm around my waist. His smile was dazzling, perfect for photographs. I smiled back because to flinch now would mean surrender. "Of course," I said, kissing his cheek as though I hadn't read the evidence of my own death in his study. Vanessa appeared behind him in oversized sunglasses, dragging a suitcase across the dock. She looked like a movie star boarding her private escape. To anyone watching, we were just family embarking on a dream vacation. No one could see the undertow swirling beneath. The first days passed in a strange theater of normalcy. We ate lobster on the deck, toasted sunsets with champagne, and swam in crystalline waters. To the crew, we were just another trio of wealthy passengers. But beneath every clink of glasses, I felt the ticking of a clock no one else could hear. At night, when Derek thought I was asleep, I studied the room in silence, memorizing exits, calculating how far the crew quarters were, rehearsing escape routes. Every detail mattered. Every mistake would cost me my life. On the 4th evening, the yacht drifted farther from shore. Captain Rodriguez casually mentioned we were 100 miles out, no land in sight. Derek smiled. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, and I felt the world tilt closer to the edge. Later, as the sun bled orange across the horizon, Derek mixed cocktails at the bar. His voice was light, almost playful. "Special recipe tonight," he said, setting a glass in front of me. "Extra strong, just the way you like it." I lifted the drink. tilted it against my lips, then let the liquid slide unseen into the folds of the napkin on my lap. Delicious, I murmured, my throat tightening with more than just fear. Over the next hour, I acted out a performance that might have won awards. My words slurred, my steps faltered, I laughed too loudly, then sagged against the railing, as if the sea air itself had drugged me. Vanessa's eyes glittered. She's had enough, she whispered, her voice low but not low enough. Perfect, Derek replied, already sliding an arm around me, guiding me below deck. His hand was gentle, almost tender, but I could feel the steel in it. In our stateroom, I collapsed onto the bed, my breathing shallow, my eyelids heavy with practiced drowsiness. Derek bent over me, checking for response, satisfied when I didn't stir. He locked the door and walked away. Only then did I open my eyes. From beneath the mattress, I pulled the waterproof pouch I had hidden in my luggage, the beacon, the sat phone, the cash. I strapped it against my waist, every motion quiet, calculated. Above me through the thin ceiling I heard Vanessa's voice, a she out. Derek's answer was cold and certain. Completely. She won't wake even when we move her. My hands shook, not with fear, but with the raw fire of survival. If this was the night they chose to end me, then this was also the night I would rise against them. The door creaked open. Footsteps, 2 sets. I let my body stay limp on the bed, breathing shallow, eyes half shut. Derek's silhouette loomed first, Vanessa trailing close behind. He whispered, time to move her. Quick, no one's on deck. Vanessa hesitated at the threshold. Are you sure this will work? Derek's voice was ice. She'll never wake. By sunrise she'll be gone, and we'll be free. They stepped closer. The air smelled of Derek's cologne and Vanessa's perfume, familiar scents now twisted into a nightmare. Derek reached for my wrists. Vanessa leaned in, her face inches from mine, checking. For a heartbeat her eyes flickered, the sister I once knew peeking through. Then it was gone. Let's finish it, she said flatly. I sat up. The shock on their faces was almost comical, mouths open, eyes wide, as if a ghost had risen in front of them, looking for something. My voice was steady, though my pulse hammered. Derek dropped the mask instantly, his features hardening into something predatory. You should have stayed asleep. Vanessa's jaw tightened, but she didn't retreat. She circled, blocking the door, her sunglasses gone, her eyes sharp as glass. I stood, spine straight, hands clenched at my sides. I know everything, the will, the money, the plan, I heard you. For a moment, silence stretched. Then Vanessa laughed, a brittle, ugly sound. You were always so clever, weren't you, Prissy? Always ahead, always perfect. Well, perfection ends tonight. Derek lunged. I sidestepped, adrenaline igniting my body, sending him crashing into the desk. Papers scattered, glass shattered. Vanessa shoved me toward the wall, her nails clawing my arm, but I twisted free. The cabin shrank into chaos. Furniture toppling, voices shouting, the sea pounding outside like a drum. We spilled onto the deck, the night vast and endless around us. I screamed for help, but the crew quarters were too far, the engines too loud. Derek grabbed me from behind, his grip iron around my waist. Hold her, he barked. Vanessa seized my wrists. For a breathless instant we were locked in a grotesque parody of sisterhood, her face inches from mine, her breath hot with fury. Vanessa, I gasped. We're blood. Don't do this. Her eyes glittered with something darker than hate. She leaned close, her voice a whisper only I could hear. Say hello to the sharks, Prissy. And she shoved, the world tilted. Derek's smile, Vanessa's cold stare, the deck's lights, all receded as the ocean swallowed me. The impact was violence itself, cold water slamming my body, lungs seizing, salt burning my throat. Darkness closed around me. Above, the yacht's engines roared, its lights already sliding away. For a moment, the panic almost won. The instinct to inhale, to surrender, nearly dragged me under. But then another instinct rose, fiercer than fear. Survival. I broke the surface, gasping, the vast black ocean stretching in every direction. The yacht was shrinking, its glow receding like a false star. They thought I was finished. But this was not my ending. This was my beginning. The ocean tried to claim me that night, but it failed. Hours blurred into a fever of salt cold, and the stubborn rhythm of survival, one breath. One kick, one more second. When the fishing boat's lantern finally found me, I was less woman than wreckage, but I was alive. And that was enough. Recovery was not measured in days, but in choices. First, the choice to stay hidden while the world mourned me. Then the choice to sharpen grief into strategy. In a quiet room on the Mexican coast, I dyed my hair black, built encrypted channels with allies, and studied Derek and Vanessa as though they were code to be broken. Every detail became data, every betrayal became evidence. when I walked back into my own mansion 3 months later, it wasn't as Priscilla the victim, it was as Priscilla the reckoning. The table was set, the gift box waiting, my traps laid like lines of perfect syntax. And when Derek and Vanessa finally stumbled in, laughing drunk on the fortune they thought they had stolen, they found me seated at the head of the table. The look on their faces, that blend of horror, disbelief, and recognition, wasn't triumph for me, it was clarity. They had mistaken my silence for weakness, my trust for ignorance, my love for blindness. And in that miscalculation, they destroyed themselves. When the police took them away, I didn't shout, didn't gloat. I simply stood in the wreckage of fine china and shattered illusions, breathing in the strange stillness of a home reclaimed. Justice had arrived not with fury, but with precision. But justice is not healing. Healing is slower, quieter, harder. Months later, I visited the ocean again, not on a luxury yacht, but on a modest boat with a few loyal friends. At the coordinates where I had been thrown into the dark, I scattered white roses one by one. Each rose was a month of survival, a chapter of rebirth, a memory I chose to release. The final rose I held longer, whispering to the version of myself who had died in those waters, the trusting woman who believed family could never become predators. I let her go, not in bitterness but in honor. She had carried me far enough to reach the surface. I would carry myself the rest of the way. Today, I no longer live as someone's sister or someone's wife. I live as someone who has learned the brutal and liberating truth: when the people closest to you betray you, it is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new one, written entirely by your own hand. The sea stretches endlessly before me, calm under the morning sun. It is the same ocean that tried to erase me, the same water that bore me into the arms of strangers who saved my life. I look at it now not as a grave, but as a mirror, reminding me of everything I lost and everything I found. Survival is not the miracle. Becoming whole again is.